Steering wheel, somebody tell him to give it to me.
There's something loose between my legs.
I don't know. Let go!
I'm heavier than a freaking boat.
Nothing he's going to say can make that any better.
No more radio for the rest of the race.
I'm going home. You.
Hello and welcome to DRS FC, an F1 podcast by some soccer nerds. I am André Carlisle here to recap the Las Vegas Grand Prix with two of my co-hosts, Kyle Carr. Kyle, how are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm fully recovered. I've gotten the sleep I've needed from trying to stay up way past my bedtime.
You know what? We might need to talk about the time. The time slot still confuses me because I'm like, who is this for? But Deepti is also with us. Deepti, how are you?
Hi, André. I'm doing well. And you know what? What happens in Vegas doesn't stay in Vegas this time because I am so ready to talk about it.
We are breaking the chief rule of Vegas when talking about everything that happened in Vegas from the Las Vegas Grand Prix. So I'll kind of go over the highlights of what happened, or at least the key moments that everybody's talking about. It was a Mercedes 1-2. We can talk about why that may have happened, which is kind of interesting, even though Lewis started 10th because of weirdness in qualifying that he went through. I say it went through. He did it himself. But, you know, I like Lewis, so I was a little softer with the language. But he still made it up there to second place. Max Verstappen ended up, fifth, I think, finishing fifth. But it was enough because Lando Norris did not have a great race. McLaren overall did not have a great race. And all Max needed to do was finish above Lando Norris, which he did because Norris finished sixth. So Max secured his fourth consecutive and, of course, total overall World Drivers' Championship. And so congratulations to him, whatever. We'll probably get into it a bit more than that. And then Ferrari also had a bit of a weird one, but they were third and fourth on the grid as well. All right. Those are kind of like the big things. I think there are many, many other things that happened, but let's just stick with that pool of kind of the key moments that everybody's talking about. Which one of those, Deepti, do you want to talk about the most?
I was most surprised about McLaren not going fast, but I want to start on a happier note and talk about Mercedes if we can. And how, Lewis, after the Brazil Grand Prix, almost was like, I walked away. I'm not going to be in this car anymore. I can't. He low-key almost didn't want to do the last three races, and he comes out and has one of the best races that he's had this season. So that made me really happy to see. He was absolutely flying. And like you said, if it was not for his small mistake and lockup in Q3, he would have, I think they said he would have qualified. He probably would have been P3 on the grid, somewhere around that. His time was close to that. And he could have potentially won this race. It would still have been between him and George. But coming from P10, driving a fantastic race, getting on the podium P2, it was so nice. Made me very happy.
Yeah, it was kind of one of those and the Mercedes car was good the whole weekend. Right from practice 1 through practice 2 through practice 3, qualifying Q1 and Q2 as well. It would have been a Lewis George front row easily with how they were performing. And then it would have been interesting to see how they would have battled it out. But that car was, I don't know what it was, whether it's just that car was specifically designed for that track or maybe an upgrade kicked in. I don't know what it was, but whatever they did, it worked perfectly for Mercedes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I missed qualifying because I got to go to the NWSL Championship game. I cover the Washington Spirit, if people don't know, and of course they're very sad, but it was also a very good season for them. Not this podcast. I'll talk about them later on another podcast. But I did stay up and I did watch every single practice session, and I was like, Mercedes is killing it. This is amazing. If they keep this up, they're gonna go. And then I see, I'm actually following it on my phone. And I see what was it? There was a red flag. And so qualifying or the Q3 session was delayed. And I was annoyed because I was I'm trying to get the result before I get distracted or whatever. And then I see the F1 post come out and it's just George gets pole. And I was okay, so Lewis must be second or third. And then it updates and I see Lewis is 10th. And I'm what the hell happened? Mm-hmm. So I was pissed off. But I think the thing that's been so interesting to me about Mercedes this entire year is that they built a car that likes cold temperatures. Unfortunately, racetracks are rarely cold. So Vegas at night, yes, it's a desert, but it's especially in November, it gets chilly. They were good also in Canada, cold. They were good at Spa in Belgium, cold. They were good. Where else? Was it Silverstone? Well, yeah, where Lewis won, cold weather. I don't really understand why that's the case, and neither do they. I think that's the thing that keeps cracking me up about Mercedes is every time they perform well, they're like, we don't know why that happened. I'm like, you guys are paid to. You can't have the same answer I have.
It is kind of funny because it's just like, all right, and then the next couple races it's like Qatar. Could be cold. Could be a death trap. Who knows?
I think the latter.
Probably. Based off of last year, not great. In Abu Dhabi, similar struggle.
Yeah.
So this is probably as good as it's going to get from Mercedes, but it is one of those where it's like, why is it only in the cold? Like, why would you design a car that would do well in like 4 races of the year?
Right. And it's weird. Cold really affects like the tires because you get the tires can't heat up. You don't get as much grip. So there's kind of slipping and the locking up that I saw. But it's interesting. I don't know too much about how cold weather affects like the actual mechanics, like the engine and whatnot. We know a little bit about how wetness does, and when it's wet, it's colder. But the Mercedes were not necessarily good in wet either. So it's really just this weird combination of like atmospheric conditions that they're good in, and like you said, they don't really know why. And it's not like they purposefully did this because you wouldn't do that for an F1 car. And so I think they said Vegas is the coldest GP of the year. So honestly, it's not going to get better than this. And I guess good for them. Like now they can attempt to try to make it work in warmer conditions. Because clearly both of them are obviously good drivers and they can do stuff. So if they had the right car and the right thing, they would have had a much better season.
You know what's so wild to me is the fact that, like you said, Deepti, yes, it does help with the tires. They're able to get, and I think this is the problem that when the temperatures rise, this really messes them up because they cook their tires. George is notorious for cooking his tires early and then trying to hang on and falling back. Lewis tries to preserve his, but in doing so, you get past and it's hard to make up ground. You never really have them in an optimal window to go on the attack. They're always managing them. In this race, that wasn't the case. They got their tires up to good temperature. They were able to roll. Everything was good. The thing that is so strange to me and that is so interesting is looking at the fastest laps. So Formula One posts these fastest laps that they have because we know that the cold weather helps the tires, like Deepti just said, but how does it affect the engine? Looking at the average speed for the fastest laps. Of course, Lando Norris has the highest because he put on soft tires, and so of course it's going to be faster. But Lewis was 233.8. The only other cars that were in 233s were Leclerc and the Ferrari. Straight line speed is good with those cars. George Russell, another Mercedes. Carlos Sainz got his to 232.8, so pretty close to 233. Everybody else was 231 and below, or below 232. Verstappen, 231.9. Even Joe got up there, 231.7. Sergio Perez, another Red Bull, 231.7. So they must have gotten some sort of extra engine performance as well. So not only does the cold help their tires, it also helps their engine. And the fact that they don't understand why the temperature helps either or both is just so confusing to me, because if they did, they have drivers that can win multiple championships. And maybe we're talking about a completely different season if Mercedes is able to get a handle on this car. How soon was the coldest race? Was it Canada? That's kind of pretty early in the season. If they're able to figure it out by then, I don't know what kind of season we could be looking at from Mercedes, but instead they've been just weird. And as you both said, there's not another cold temperature race coming because there's only 2 races left, and those are both going to be very hot.
And it's interesting because after the first 2 practices, Lewis even said, the race pace is not that great, so we have to do work overnight. And we're like, what? What do you mean? That doesn't make any sense. And then crushes it in final practice 3, crushed it in quali, crushed it in the race. I was like, what do you mean he didn't have the race pace? Where is this coming from?
Yeah, and I want to look back now at actually Monza, because I know Las Vegas is notoriously a fast track just in general because of that. And it's similar speeds to Monza. And I know, I don't know what the weather conditions were there. I don't remember. But I do know that in the practice sessions there, the Mercedes were at the top. And I think George got on podium for that race, if I'm not mistaken.
He did third. He qualified third. Sorry.
Quali third. That's what it was.
7th, and Lewis finished 5th.
Gotcha. But either way, they were fast that weekend as well. I don't remember the details of that race, but yeah. So there's something with that where like notoriously fast tracks, and maybe like a little bit colder as well. That's just what Mercedes needed to do. And obviously there were upgrades in between Monza and now, but similar-ish conditions, at least on the track, it does match up with how the car performed.
Yeah, it's a little wild, and honestly, I don't like. As far as them figuring it out now, I don't care. Like Lewis is leaving after this season. We'll see what happens. So I'm just kind of like, all right, I don't really care. Let's go to something that I kind of do care about, and maybe this is the problem that I cared too much. McLaren. It was like when their car started to look good, they made that turn. Kind of like middle of the season, maybe a little bit before. Really, Miami is where things kind of started to turn around. And then it became pretty clear, especially by a lot of the other podcasts and F1 writers that I listened to, were like, McLaren has the best all-around car. Red Bull was struggling. Mercedes, we just talked about. Ferrari's up and down, especially before Ferrari put like whatever upgrade on that made them absolute monsters after the summer break for a period of time. But McLaren had multiple opportunities to pick up a lot of points in the constructors, ended up leading the constructors, which they still do. But Oscar Piastri looked like a Grand Prix runner, and maybe he could even develop into a future world champion. Like, he was looking great. Lando Norris was looking extremely quick. His only competition he was having was his own teammate, which he didn't seem to understand at the time. And Oscar was like, oh no, buddy, we're battling. And everything looked like Max is going to struggle. Max and Red Bull are going to struggle, one, to hang on to the constructors, which they already lost. They're, I think, third in the constructors right now. And Max's Drivers' Championship was also looking like there was a lead that Lando Norris could have eaten into if McLaren plays some things right and continues their performance. Fast forward to now. They fell off so bad. Oscar Piastri himself has fallen off really bad as a driver. McLaren's car was not good, especially compared to what it had been. The Ferrari car looks much better now than theirs, especially given that the McLaren was supposed to be this all-around machine that could handle any sort of track, any sort of condition. That doesn't seem to be the case anymore. I'm just mad I ever believed in them, because Lando's also over here talking about, like, I wasn't ready to challenge Max. How long has he been in F1? Hasn't been 5 years? Is this his 6th season? What are you waiting for? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm mad at myself for believing that. It's like the be careful what you wish for. Anybody but Max was really where I was at. And just McLaren as an entire team, staff, organization, and crew, I'm just like, y'all ain't got it.
And it's almost just like the pressure got to them and it just got too hot and they couldn't handle it. And it was like an immediate effect of, oh shoot, we can possibly do this, and now we're going to do everything in our power to not do it. And which is it's such a shame, because they really, like, there still are no pieces really that they're missing. Like, I guess it's been strategy, and it's been, like we've been talking about, like Lando not having that final competitive edge or having the dog in him to be able to actually push and get to be as competitive as he could be. Hopefully next season, like, we can keep saying, okay, maybe next season. I think it's time to give it to Oscar. I feel like, Oscar is he seems very laid back, but like all he cares about is kind of driving, and he'll just drive and do it. And maybe that's what we need. And I feel like we haven't been able to see how competitive, and if he has like that edge in him to make the final move, because he hasn't been given that chance yet. He's just been given team orders, and that's what he follows. So maybe next season it's time to like start treating him as driver one and see how that takes them.
I think for me, it was just the manner in which they just kind of were like, oh shucks, it went from, no, we're gonna push for the drivers' championship, and oh, we're really gonna make a charge for the constructors, and now it's kind of like, oh shucks, like, yeah, I wasn't ready. Max doesn't have a weakness. Like, yes, he does. You just got to get him rattled, and there's his weakness. But it was like they were conceding that. Piastri's like, yeah, after Vegas, it was just like not ideal. We'll keep fighting. It's going to be tight. And it's like, what happened? I don't know what happened in that break between Singapore and the US Grand Prix. But McLaren got 92 going in. McLaren were leading. And in the 4 races, they've gotten 92 points. Ferrari went in and they got 143. Ferrari have made 51-point gain on McLaren, and now it's kind of looking like they might just win this whole thing. As long as they don't screw it up, they're going to beat McLaren, and it's kind of just more of a, where is this like winner mentality? And I think that's the problem. And I think that's something we've said all year, is there's no winner mentality. There's no cutthroat aspect. It was kind of like we're here. This is cool. We're happy to be here. And then it turned into, well, we gave it our best. It's like, absolutely not. Like Christian Horner, for all of his faults, he's not going to be like, oh no. Like he was lying about the car just to say like, no, everything's fine. We're winning. Nothing's wrong with the car. Total Wolf is over here having nightmares trying to figure out like, okay, I don't know what's wrong with this car, but we need to fix it. Ferrari literally were like, we got to bring someone else in because we had a car and strategy was bundled. And I think that's kind of like the difference. And I don't know where McLaren go from here. I think you do give Oscar a chance to be the number one driver. And if he doesn't get it, then see what Lando can do. But it might just be this is not a championship material team.
Oscar was interviewed, I think it was right before the race, from motorsport.com. And you remember how there was a whole thing about papaya rules, and basically means like Lando's number one and Oscar will do what we're told, or what he's told. And Piastri basically said after Brazil that papaya rules had changed and it's gone back to how it used to be, and where they don't care about they basically gave up on the drivers' championship, even though there was a slim chance. But yeah, he was like, this is what he said, quote, "There's still some, let's say, very specific scenarios where I might be needed to help out, but for the large majority of situations, it's back to how it was. The drivers' championship picture is very slim, and the constructors' championship is certainly not over for us." So it seems like they're moving in that direction. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where the team takes it in the next season and how the two drivers will agree. Because Lando won't take it easily if he's made to like either have to battle Oscar all the time or even be pushed to driver 2.
And part of this is like where so on performance, I think you can look at it and say Lando Norris is still, obviously he's the more experienced driver, but he's also the more consistent driver at the moment. Like Oscar had his hot streak and then he fell off. But I'm kind of backing y'all's assumption or y'all's kind of insistence that Oscar be treated as a number one driver just to see how it goes, because what we know of Oscar, if it was him that was this close to Max, even if Max goes ahead and secures his 4th title and the Drivers' Championship is over, like it is, like in Vegas, say it's the exact same scenario, I can't envision Oscar ever saying that he wasn't ready to challenge Max. I just don't think that's his personality. We've seen him, for the most part, battle, anybody on the track. Like he's comfortable. When he's comfortable in the car, he kind of has a mentality. He pulled that move in Monza around Lando Norris, which also was something he shouldn't have done or the team shouldn't have let him do. But we know he's got a layer of audacity to him, and you really need that if you're going up against Max, because Max isn't going to continue to. Max and Red Bull aren't going to continue to stumble and just give it to you. It's not going to be easy. You're going to have to go and get it, and that's the thing that Lando really I got frustrated at with Lando and McLaren. I haven't seen anybody do the math, but I would love to look at all decisions they made, from papaya rules and everything else, all the decisions they made, how many points they lost by not treating this like a real drivers' championship fight for several races when they clearly had the better car and Red Bull were struggling. Yeah, I think if they snap into it right then and right there and cut down on some of their mistakes, Max doesn't secure this. Maybe he secures it the next race. Maybe it's Abu Dhabi again and you have another anything can happen, because as we know, sometimes race directors like to just give drivers' championships to people. But maybe something like that happens. But they never let it get that close. It almost seems like they conceded this long time ago. And it just infuriates me because they were so good and they look like they were going to be the cream of, like, at least for this regulation set, like trying to be, McLaren was going to be the team. And then in 2025, they're also going to be the team. In 2026, everything kind of hits a reset button and we'll see. And now it looks like Ferrari's that team, because I think, saying the notes here, and I think, Kyle, you put this in here and you just did the math. Ferrari narrowed the gap on McLaren at 24 points. That's one race worth of points. If somebody wins, you don't even have to win. You just have 2 really high finishes, and that thing flips around depending on where the McLarens finish. So McLaren now are under real pressure from Ferrari to lose the number 1 spot in the Constructors' Championship, when it looked like they might run away with the Constructors and put a lot of pressure on Max for the drivers. But here's the problem with Ferrari. they're back to being Ferrari. The whole pit situation with Carlos and Charles just, I don't know what was going on. We just got like a whole lot of drama in some radio calls that we'll get to. But like, I'm like, oh no, I thought this Ferrari was not here anymore. And now they're back.
Can I just say one more thing about McLaren before we jump to Ferrari?
Yes.
Kyle, this is what you were saying, like, you don't know what happened between Singapore and Austin. I think it was post Baku. Baku is when Piastri won, right? McLaren had a different rear wing design that they used up until then. And that's like when they had their big stretch of like good races. And then after Baku, other teams agreed to change the design of the rear wings. And I think basically it like makes it less flexible, I want to say. And like the rear wings were able to like deform noticeably on those long straights. And so people are speculating that it could have been a different, like, because of that different design, the McLaren cars are not actually performing as well and not going as fast as then. So that like is around that time period too, is when they dropped off, is when they had a rear wing change. Lando has said that like the change didn't make much of a difference, but that is one potential like explanation to what happened mechanically.
I do want to mention something about that as well, though. Thank you for bringing that up, because I kind of forgot that was a thing that happened, because there was this whole like they're cheating because there was the flexi wing thing. They were calling it like a mini DRS thing, or it was going to increased airflow because it was flexing and all of that business. I think the thing with that wing was this was the first race that they would have run it, that they weren't going to have it because of the long straight. It's basically whenever there's a long straight to increase their top speed or top end speed, they were going to have it. So this, I don't think it affected the races in between Baku and Vegas, but it definitely affected Vegas because on the calendar, from what I understood, this would be a time to pull that wing out and have it on the car because of the track in Vegas. So that might be true. I don't know. Might need to do some more reading on that, but I think there certainly was something with their wing and causing a problem. And I kind of would be surprised if they wouldn't use it in Mexico either. Although Mexico, because of the altitude, is a weird setup anyway. So maybe that wouldn't have been a place where they use it. But yeah, that is also something to point out that maybe has put them in a developmental kind of setback a little bit, where they had to kind of re-envision some things and reproduce some things that they expected to have. I
think it was more just a tire management issue, because you could tell towards the end of the race, like Lando was doing better, but it was too far too gone by then.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get to Ferrari.
All right. Yeah, let's do it.
You mentioned the pit stuff. I have a whole section of notes when I was watching this race of just pit lane mishaps that I kind of want to talk about. Ferrari had a couple of them, and it's just, they're back to old Ferrari ways, it almost it seemed. But yeah, the first sort of calling Carlos in, he gets into the pit lane almost, or like about to get into it, and then he goes out and has to take another lap, or another couple laps before going in. And you hear him on the radio, and he's like, what happened? Like, what's going on? And he said, they admit it. They're like, we were not ready. And you just hear him go, wake up, guys, come on. You can't do this. Which is so true. Like, and also, like, Carlos was calling on his team to bring him in and bring him into the pits 3 laps before they actually did. And, like, he got on the podium. He got P3, but there was the simulation, and like the data showed that if Carlos had pitted 2 laps earlier than he did, like he wanted to, he would have been able to make up a spot and possibly get P2. So this is one of those situations. We've talked about this before. It's like, at what point do you trust your data and like you tell the driver when to box, or and when do you trust your driver and the driver's instincts and how the feel of the car is and go with what they're saying?
Yeah, it was. I mean, Carlos even said, like, we didn't execute. It felt like the Ferrari of 2022 and older. It was just like, you have an easy situation. Right now, get P3, get P4, no problem. Charles tries to go at George early. That does not work. He has his issues. We'll talk about that later. Then all of a sudden, Carlos is having this go, and he's struggling. It was just why are you making this more difficult than you need to?
And it was just weird interaction on track from both the drivers too, because there was some like concede the position and they do. And then they're like, okay, but don't put pressure on or whatever. And they're just some weird radio calls. And then clearly there's miscommunication because at one point Carlos does just overtake Charles and he was like, what the hell? And so like, I'm just like, Ferrari, please get your shit together. Like I said it earlier this episode, like Lewis is leaving. Yes, he's going to Ferrari. I thought like, okay, looks like Ferrari's got their shit together. This is fun. This is actually the perfect time for Lewis to come because Ferrari's usually notorious for doing just weird stuff. They'll have a fast car. They'll spend a lot of money, of course, before the cost cap, and they'll be up there. But strategy, weird pit decisions, just whatever you can do to kind of like step on a rake, multiple rakes, the sideshow bop like Simpsons thing, like it just, that's Ferrari. And I was hoping that those days were over, but clearly they are not. So we'll talk about the Charles radio calls too, because I think that's where you see the most dysfunction. You kind of lift the lid on kind of things that may have been going on internally. And that's a little bit scary to know what the source of those things are, because we don't have any more information at the moment than any radio calls. And I haven't seen anything reported credibly from any journalists about struggles within Ferrari either, besides the normal, like sometimes they mess up strategy. So yeah, this is going to be a little bit fascinating. Okay. There are two more things that I want to talk about before we get into those radio calls, and then we talk about a bit of news and then do our Zoomy and Gloomy Boy, as we normally do. But the thing I really like about F1, especially since I kind of got into it, and shout out to Drive to Survive for kind of highlighting this too, is that yes, the top of the grid is cool. There's a lot of drama. There's a lot of things happening. There's teammates battling, all of that stuff. But there's still stuff in the middle kind of the grid and the back of the grid that is fascinating. And so for me, the battle for sixth place in the constructors is fascinating because, of course, Alpine, because of their random, out of nowhere, but extremely rain-aided performance in Brazil, where they were 2-3 with their drivers, catapulted them up to sixth place. And sixth place is basically, that's kind of like the cutoff in terms of like the teams that have a bunch of money or expected to, at least in theory, could fight for a championship, in theory. So six is kind of best of the rest a little bit. But I think it's still important because these teams are trying to put together good teams. They may not have the funding, or in some cases, like Aston Martin, they do, and they're just not good. But you had Alpine make a massive jump because their points haul finishing second and third. And in one race, they took themselves from, I don't even know what, I think they jumped 3 or 4 spots and ended up leading that best of the rest pack. But it's so tight that one good performance by my guy, Nico Hülkenberg, scored some points that put Haas back on top. Haas has 50 points. Alpine now has 49. And RB, the second Red Bull team, RB, V-Carb, Cash App, whatever, has 46 because Yuki finished 9th as well. This battle is fascinating to me, and I love it.
It's interesting because I don't think we would have expected Haas to be up there. Mm-hmm. At the beginning of the year, everyone was saying this Alpine car is terrible, no good, very bad. And so the fact that they're here, you never know with Cash App because you might think there's some self-sabotage. They might say like, okay, stop doing so well. You're hurting our actual team. So the fact that these three are in this battle is pretty interesting. I am kind of surprised that Williams wasn't able to kind of build because it seemed like Williams had a car that was good for faster tracks, but they haven't really been able to capitalize it. Part of that is driver error. Part of that is their own doing. We'll touch on that a little bit later. But a team that has Kevin Magnussen still fighting for 6 is very impressive. And the fact that they haven't gone completely broke because of his crashes, very well done. And Alpine, yeah, they had one race where it turned it around, but Pierre got P3. That was pretty good. He wouldn't have held it probably, but the fact that he even got up there shows Alpine really did a good job at improving the car. And you wonder, maybe next year they can get up there and like battle Aston Martin for 5th?
Yeah, it's funny because we were talking about, obviously, we know Alpine did well in the really wet race, right? So like, okay, Alpine, it just wasn't a car, it was a boat. That's why it did well that race. And the 2 podium spots got them, you said they have 49 points right now. From that one race, they got 33 of their 49 points.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Which is crazy.
Was it 35 because of the sprint race too? I think they
got true. Yeah, they had the sprint race as well. So yeah, it was So yes, obviously a bulk of their points came from that one race. But yeah, after watching like qualifying and seeing Pierre, I was like, okay, maybe it's an amphibious car. They made it work. Like it works in the cold weather. It works. He was flying, and honestly, he seemed surprised too when he got that call that he got P3. So it'll be really interesting these next two to see. It seems like they're getting more comfortable in the car. Ocon didn't really do much this weekend. So, we'll see what happens. But yeah, Haas has kind of been consistently in that, like, get a couple points each race if you can. At least one of the drivers getting up into Q3 in qualifying and getting a couple points. So it'll be definitely a fun battle for this sixth spot, which is worth a lot more money. Like 6th to 8th is several like tens of millions of dollars difference. So they will not want to stop fighting till the end.
Yeah, I think we don't have the specific numbers because apparently F1 isn't really transparent with those numbers. But what I have heard from other people say and what I've read is that basically it's about $10 million per spot. So you'd be looking at about a $20 million difference between 6th and 8th. And then, of course, maybe even 9th, given where Alpine was, because I think Williams was just ahead of them before they had that ridiculous weekend where they got the vast majority of their points and rocketed up this table. So that's a ton of money that they may have secured themselves if they can hang on, which is going to be really tough, which is why I love this battle, especially because you have like a lot of unpredictable drivers kind of battling it out. And you also have we have said it before, the Frankenhaus, that car, what they've been able to do and how they put that thing together. I'm a little sad that this isn't going to be their driver lineup because it seems kind of perfect for them. They don't have to spend a ton of money or try to do a lot of things. These are veteran drivers who kind of understand like what a good setup is. And if you give them something that they're comfortable with or somewhat can adjust to, they can do well. Like Magnussen had an issue with the brakes earlier. And since he kind of figured that out, he's been kind of right there a little bit much closer to Hülkenberg. But Hülkenberg, every now and then, maybe half the Grand Prix, maybe just a little bit under half, he'll pop up in Q3 from time to time. And it's like, why is a Haas in Q3? But this has been really, really cool to kind of see what Haas has been able to do, which is why I love this battle because like we heard with Alpine, all it really takes is one weird, maybe it's a crash, maybe it's a rain race, maybe it's just some sort of weird conditions that messes up things and cars get bumped up where they normally wouldn't finish, and suddenly you have a team like really climbing the table and getting a lot of money or getting themselves in a much better position for next year in terms of funding. So yeah, it's kind of a fascinating battle to me, and I kind of love it.
I'm curious now how it'll translate to next year, because obviously all that money is going to help with how they build the car, but it's not like they're going to still have enough to not entirely be a Frankenhaus. It might be just a better Frankenhaus, right? But I think part of it is that K-Mag and Hulk are both veteran drivers, so they know how it feels. They know they've been in Haas for a while. They know how to adjust. Next year they have Ocon and Ollie Bierman, a rookie, and so potentially, if it is a car that needs a lot of adjustments or adjusting to on demand, it might not go as well. So I'm curious to see how the extra money will help the way they design the car, but also how the two new drivers will be able to do in it.
Well, I was going to say that's the same thing with Alpine because they'll have Pierre Gasly coming back, but they're going to bring in a rookie in Jack Doohan, who was their academy driver as well. So it is interesting to see if Alpine continue on this trajectory. Is Doohan going to be able to compete with that? Or is he going to kind of fall more like where Joe was, where the car isn't good? He's trying, but we don't know how good Joe really is because the car was that terrible. And I wonder if that's going to be the same thing with Jack Doohan. Is he decent? Does he deserve a seat? Or is the car that bad? We've seen with Ollie Berman, we know there is something there. We know he can drive. There is a talent. It's just a matter of so I kind of wonder will the rookies be able to handle that adjustment instead of just coming in, filling in, just doing test drives? Okay, now you got to actually battle and fight and compete.
And be consistent, which is a great segue to talk about the last thing that I want to talk about. And that is everybody's favorite new driver, Franco Colapinto, who might not be people's favorite driver anymore unless you're from Argentina, because he is currently struggling after feeling like it was going to be an utter outrage that he didn't have a seat secured for 2025. How can you not? Look at this driver. Look at the talent. He keeps crashing that Williams car. Williams mechanics, I don't know if overtime is a thing in terms of what they have to do, but if they are, he's straight up gonna bankrupt Williams because their mechanics are putting in absolute work rebuilding his car every single weekend, sometimes in between sessions. Like how many crashes has it been? 4? I think he had 2 in 1 week, and he had this one in Vegas, and I think there was one more. I can't remember. It's been a lot, and they've had to pay a ton of money. This crash was pretty bad. They said it was 50 G's, and I think the safety car gets deployed if it's over 20 or 25. But either way, it's a lot. It's substantially more than what is required to bring out the safety car. So I'm glad he was okay and cleared the race. But buddy, like kind of on top of the world with everybody wants you. Like we've even heard that openly, like Red Bull, the main team is asking about him. Maybe they get him in that RB and then try and see if he can be Max's teammate in 2026 or something like that. Like maybe it's all distracting for him. I don't know. But the fact that he keeps crashing his car is just a really bad look. And also Williams is like hemorrhaging money because Albon is crashing and Colapinto is crashing. And they're not a team that has a ton of money to spend. So this has been really, really rough. And so where I was once really excited about all these rookies coming in next year, and Colapinto is kind of showing that things can start one way and turn very different.
Yeah. Honestly, shout out to the mechanics for fixing that car, getting it race ready overnight. Because it wasn't a good crash, and it was entirely driver error. Like it wasn't anything else during Q2, or Q3, Q2. But anyway, André, like you're saying, I was one of those who's very excited about Franco. I still am. Like obviously, he's still like a rookie, inexperienced F1 driver. He has to get some leeway, but there's a line, and he's quickly approaching that line to how much you can destroy a car and still be offered a seat. And we saw this happen with Logan Sargent. Like he wasn't performing well. He was crashing a lot, costing the team a lot of money, and that's why he's gone. And so not a good like last couple races for Colapinto. I think obviously he still has the talent. I would still like to see him in a seat because he did show that potential initially, but I think you're right. Maybe it's like a mental thing. Maybe like the extra attention and the new pressure of not having a seat yet, but people talking about, oh, he should get one. Maybe that got to him. So I'm not sure, but I'm sad because I wanted him to do really well the rest of the season to secure a spot.
I think it's just tough as well with a team like Williams. Like they're using Excel spreadsheets. They don't have time to be trying to figure out, like they're just like, you can't lose money. And that's one of the biggest things. Like crashing is always going to get you in trouble. And granted, has every crash been his fault? No. But like André had said, I don't know if it was early in this recording or before we recorded, you can't have a crash like you did on qualified. Like that was a dumb crash. Like that's a dumb crash. You can't do that. That's one of those that will get you fired really, really quick. And I think a year as a reserve driver probably is the best. Like let him get more acclimated, let him ease his way. Like we all know there's talent, but rushing the talent might not be a good idea. We saw it with Nick DeVries. It's like they rushed him after only like one race, and then he didn't work out. Like you don't want that same thing happening. So I think a year as a reserve driver and learning from Carlos Sainz will be good for him.
Yeah, it was funny too, because it was almost like there was that period where people were like, man, I bet Williams regrets spending all that money on getting Carlos Sainz because they could have Colapinto and it's like, no, actually they need Carlos Sainz because Colapinto, as much as I do believe in his talent, I just don't think he's ready yet. Especially if your options are Carlos Sainz or Franco Colapinto. And I think it's impressive that for like a couple races there, his performances allowed for that to become a question. Now it's not, because like Kyle said, that crash, I mean, the circumstances of it are unfortunate as well, because like the reason why it's funny in terms of comparison that he keeps crashing, and that was the problem with Logan Sargent. Like, crash your car, it's one way ticket to get out of the sport because it's too much money and it's cost cap now, so that's tough. but his performances in terms of his pace, so much better than what Logan Sargent was posting. So at least he still has that. But that's where you also have to wonder about this is why I wonder about him being maybe too much too soon, because he beat Alex Albon. Albon was out in Q1. Franco made it to Q2. Okay, great. You're set yourself up for a great starting position. The car looks, you seem comfortable with the car. Handle Q2. Maybe you get into Q3. Who knows? But just try and get in a good spot, secure it, keep the car in one piece. What does he do? Clips a wall where nobody's clipped a wall. There's been 2 races in Vegas. I don't think anybody's clipped that wall, and sent himself, just destroyed the car. And it's like, that's the stuff that I'm just like, you were so close. You were so close to a great result, or at least a great start to your race weekend, and then you do that. And that's the kind of stuff that you can't, like, you have to be able to rely on a driver to not do stuff like that. And it's hard when that's not the case.
Although Albon might have to watch himself as well, because he may not be crashing the car, but he's been bad. And at the very, like you said, at least Colapinto's quick. And maybe Albon had that luxury of, well, Logan Sargent just keeps crashing and he's not doing anything. And Latifi was the same problem. But now it's like, oh, there's someone that's faster than you. Yeah, they're crashing, but they're still faster. So when they aren't crashing, they're kind of kicking your ass. And next year is not going to help when you have a teammate that is significantly better. And now you have this guy breathing down your neck.
Yeah, it's like you were saying, initially when Colapinto was doing well, we were almost comparing, like, okay, should they have even gone for Carlos? Should it be Albon and Colapinto? Now I think the question is, should it be Carlos and Albon or Carlos and Colapinto? Because Alex has retired the car the last 3 races, I think it was. And like, I don't know how long it's been since he scored any points, but yes, he qualified, he made it to Q3 in Brazil until he had to retire again and that. But Colapinto has been outperforming him even with these crashes. So I think that's the new question is, I do agree. I think because he's still a rookie, Albon has more experience, that Colapinto would be better as a reserve driver for a year and then see. But yeah, I don't think there's any question that, they should have gotten Carlos.
Yeah, Albon has not scored since Baku, where he finished 7th. And then he did okay. He did 9th. And he finished 7th in Baku. Colapinto finished 8th. And then the next races, retired in Singapore, 16th in Austin, retired in Mexico. He didn't even race or anything in Sao Paulo, and then retired again.
Oof. Yeah, that's a brutal one. All right. Let's get into the radio calls. We're labeling them funny radio calls, but the last one might not be funny because it sounds like there's genuine beef there. I want to mention a couple before we get into that one. And if y'all heard any others, just drop them in here as well. I really appreciated Pierre Gasly losing his mind a little bit in the cockpit of that car, because he was kind of like, something's very wrong. It was almost like he was almost like in like 80s movies when like the mad scientist always comes around and he's like warning everybody, and everybody's like, everything's fine, and then all of a sudden like the asteroid shows up and it's too late to do anything. That was kind of him. He was just like, everything's fine. The team I love how calm they responded to him back. They were just like, check the sensors, everything's fine, don't worry about it. And then like 2 seconds later, the engine blows up. Yep. It was like, nope, everything's not fine. Maybe the driver knew what he was talking about.
No one listening to the drivers seems to be a theme this weekend.
It happens.
And then another funny one was Lewis, who he pitted, I think, when he didn't necessarily want to pit. And as soon as he came out, he saw so much traffic in front of him. And which is funny because this is the longest track. So like there's a lot of space for the cars to go. It was interesting how much traffic there was in certain parts of the circuit. But yeah, he gets on radio. He's like, why do we do that, guys? Like, how many cars am I behind? Not the right move, kind of thing. And again, his engineer calmly was like, you know what, if we had pitted you, I think later, or I don't remember if it was earlier or later, but he was like, if we had pitted you whenever you wanted to, you would have been 5 more spots behind. So like, this was the right move. That's a quick, easy way to like shut the driver up. It's like, we planned it right. Just do your job now. You can overtake. You know how good you are. Do it. But yeah, that was kind of funny. He freaking out for a little bit.
Commentary was also like, yeah, it's fine. Why is he freaking out? Like, it's fine. And then when Bono said it, they're like, see?
Yeah, they were like, when he realizes that they actually set him up in a pretty good position, he's going to be fine, because it was that so many of the other cars hadn't pitted yet, and that was the problem. I think he thought that everybody had pitted, or that maybe like some cars weren't going to pit and they were going to two-stop the race. I don't know what he initially thought, but he was like, I'm suddenly behind. Like, I'm seeing liveries that aren't like Ferrari and McLaren. I'm seeing like Williams and Alpine and V-Carb. Like, this is
Why
not
is
where
there
I should
Sauber
be.
here?
I know, right? He's like, is that Joe? What am I doing here? So, like, yeah, I get it from Lewis, but it was extremely hilarious. All right, let's get into it. Charles Leclerc. Does anybody have like the transcript or a good synopsis of what this was? Because this was multiple radio calls that were just like, it was almost like a Real Housewives kind of like reunion show where you're seeing like just the lid being lifted on a ton of drama. And you're like, what is happening right now? Charles was very upset on the radio, and there were a number of funny memes and everything that we saw as a result. But apparently, like, there's beef between him and Carlos that we did not know existed.
Yeah, this is as close to a crash out as I could imagine someone having in the grid. And, you know, I don't know what happened, but at the end of the race, it finished, and Charles was like, all right, cool. You want to, like, I'm sick of being the nice guy because all it does is fuck me over, and I'm done with it. So then it was like, yep. And Charles asked, like, oh, is this the checkered flag? They're like, yep. So can you just like pick up, please? And he was like, yeah, whatever you want. I'll fucking do it. But yeah, being nice fucks me over. It's not even being nice. It's just being respectful. And then the radio was like, Charles, and he's like, I know I need to shut up. But at one point, it's always the same. So, oh my fucking God. Okay. And so again, the radio then goes, okay, but anyway, you did the right thing for the team. And please pick up, please. And he's like, yeah, fucking pick up what the fuck we want. Shit. The radio's on. I'm sorry. That was on me. And then he asks, oh, where were the McLarens, by the way? They're like, P6 and P7. Wait, what the hell? It was just like the end where it was like, oh yeah, where were the McLarens, by the way? We'll just be done with it.
Just quickly try to change the subject when you've just been ranting about something else and the vibes are real weird now, so you try to get away from it.
Yeah.
It was a lot, and like just a swearing rampage. And it's funny because, you know, when you see Carlos and Charles do like media together, you don't get this sense that there's any beef between them. And I'm curious now how, like, if this is something that's been going on for a while, which it seems like he's like, yeah, I'm always the nice guy and it always screws me over. So maybe like ever since Lewis was announced as the new Ferrari driver and Carlos kind of like stopped giving a shit in terms of the team, maybe because like, why, you know, they kind of dropped you. So I get it. But it's weird. They definitely like put on a good face when they're on camera together, but there is definitely some beef between them, maybe between Charles and like the Ferrari strategy team as well. And seeing how, I'm not sure if they like gave orders to Carlos to not or to let Charles pass. I know that happened once, but then there was one time where Carlos just overtook him anyway and just went ahead, and maybe like, was it orders that weren't followed? We don't have that backstory. So really interesting.
They were supposed to swap on lap 26. They told Carlos to swap, but they also said, okay, but don't slow down Charles. So Carlos said, oh, if you want, we can box his lap, which is probably happened at the same time. And it doesn't happen. And Charles just says, nice swap. Amazing. Very sarcastic.
He also said at one point, in terms of a communication with Carlos that apparently didn't lead to the action he wanted, he said maybe say it in Spanish. And I was like, oh God, this is now getting interesting. Like, really unfortunate that was caught on radio as well. I was like, damn, Charles. Like, yeah. So I've been a little sad for Carlos because I know he's going to miss that car. It probably isn't great to be kicked out of Ferrari. It's Lewis Hamilton, so what can you do? But also, like, it seems like things are really close to fracturing between those two, which does suck because, like Deepti said, they seemingly have a great relationship, are very funny. They like to make fun of one another in like good, fun ways. Mm-hmm. And like that's when you can tell there's a good relationship, because like I have like with my friends, we can kind of like nibble a little bit on each other's like insecurities. Like that's how you do it with friends. But if there's any hint of like, no, I really fucking hate you in some of that, it's not a game anymore. Like the little nibble becomes like, oh, you want to fight now, right? Like the reaction is completely different. And that's what it feels like now, that there's that relationship they have is completely changed now, and it feels like there's legitimate animosity, and that just really sucks to see.
I think there was a point also where Charles at the end, he was like, oh, the radio was on? Oops, sorry. Just like, again, kind of sarcastically, like he knew the radio was on and he just said that stuff anyway. So that kind of thing is just over. I wish Megan was here because we know Charles is her favorite, Ferrari's her favorite. So like, I wonder if she has even more backstory or like even just what her thoughts are.
Yeah. And I mean, Carlos also was told not to pass Charles, and he did. And that's when he said, well, try and tell him in Spanish. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
It's like, wow. Just wow. Like that, all of that. So Fred Vasseur is pretty good at being calm and like managing a situation. So we'll see if any of that continues to like blow up over the radio. I probably would doubt it, but just knowing that was there and it's like reached that point now is kind of rough. Like it doesn't seem like Carlos, any sort of like Carlos farewell message like from Charles is going to be super disingenuous, because we see now that like he's probably glad he's not going to be his teammate much longer because things don't seem to have gone well. All right, let's take a quick break, get into some news because we're going a bit long on this, but a lot happened as it usually does in the Grand Prix. And then we'll do our Zoomy and Gloomy Boy and then get out of here. Okay, be right back. So this is hilarious to me. Apparently, Michael Andretti's goatee was hated by everyone because as soon as he steps down, which Donald is telling me that Donald, he's one of our co-hosts, he's kind of dropped in the chat that apparently Andretti will still be on the board, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to have to see him or his goatee at F1 races all the time, whereas he was kind of a prominent figure. But it looks like that the FIA have approved General Motors to join the grid in F1 as the 11th team in 2026. So when the rule changes go into effect, the next regulation set, GM Cadillac is going to be what the team is, how they're going to be operated. Don't know anything at all about that yet. I see a note here that says GM will enter as an engine supplier at a later time. So that's also kind of fascinating to me. But basically, Andretti stepped down, what was that, August or September, one of those. Around then is when he kind of put this statement out, said he's stepping down. And then a few months later, they finally approve a bid for GM and Cadillac to come over. And apparently Andretti is going to be also operating in that team as well, or the Andretti Global is the name of the company. So kind of fascinating. Kyle, your reaction to hearing this news, but also the timing of the news being like, okay, that guy and his goatee are out, so welcome.
It felt very much of a, wait, this is actually happening? Because we've always wanted an 11th team. We've kind of said there's too many good drivers that aren't driving. You might as well just throw an 11th team. And it seems like Andretti would make the most sense. Why not? We've let other teams in that might not have had as much merit. We've seen teams be survived through other teams funding them, like Braun, and they go and win a championship. So why can't Andretti, who seems to, he cares, he wants to do it, he's been passionate about it, he's laid out a plan, and they're like, nah, we're good. Part of it could be I guess there's rumors that Liberty Media's CEO at the time, Greg Maffei, just straight up does not like Andretti. He said, like, I will do everything in my power to see that he does not enter Formula One. So with him stepping down, maybe that was the change of it. But
it's real hate. I love it.
Yeah, it is Kendrick level hatred. And I don't know. I think it's a good time. I mean, you're in the United States. You have this big race. You have like a new champion. Why not announce it? I'm surprised they did it now, not like during a break when there would have probably been more traffic and more time to talk about it. But I'm glad there's going to be an 11th team because I think we do need at least one more just to add more talented drivers.
Yeah, I agree with that. There was also some suggestion might be like the rumors were smoke and mirrors just because they were back in the U.S. and they wanted to like drum up some excitement. But no, like the Las Vegas GP is over and that's when they make the announcement. So it seems like this is legit. Deepti, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I just think it's funny. It was like they've been going at it for a year, kind of soft approved. And then, like you said, the Liberty Media side didn't approve it. And they were like, oh, Andretti wouldn't be competitive enough or bring value to the grid. And now that he's stepped down, it's almost like an immediate, yeah, okay, you can come. And none of the articles, none of the statements that they made even mention Andretti. And that's how you know that it was kind of about him. So yes, Year of the Hater lives on.
Love it being the Year of the Hater. Kendrick dropped a new album. It's just tremendous. So if you haven't, go listen to it. But also just the bar he set for levels of hate this year. I just think that nobody will reach those for a very long time, but we should all strive to reach that level of hate because it's truly fascinating. I don't really have a ton more to say about this. I'm fascinated by it. I think a GM Cadillac, a Cadillac F1 car sounds hilarious to me.
Right.
Because of what I know about Cadillacs and the culture of Cadillac in this country as well. Extremely hilarious. So I don't know. I was listening to a podcast and they're like, maybe they should make it pink, like a pink Cadillac or whatever. And I'm like, or give it hydraulics or whatever. I don't know. I'm here for whatever they want to do, but it is going to be absolutely hilarious to see a Cadillac. Cause I don't know about y'all. I don't really think speed when I think Cadillac. I think a long boat car, maybe a big wing, big fins on the back. I think that some of those and that's fascinating, but I don't know if I've really thought speed when I think Cadillac. So Cadillac F1 car seems to be a bit of an F oxymoron.
You know what? It's going to look nice. I feel confident it's going to look nice.
Fair.
It's going to look bougie.
They might have some competition with the pink now that Alpine has the new pink livery.
Yeah, even though Alpine on occasion apparently will try to just dress up like McLaren.
True.
So every now and then they'll do something weird like that. But yeah, so I'm kind of excited to see what this is like. And I'm with you, Kyle. There seems to be a lot of good drivers, despite what we said about Colapinto. I think drivers just need experience in different conditions, different races. And so I think that you see there are drivers that can step into an F1 car and actually look decent. You just got to work with them to make them more experienced and more consistent. And this can help. More cars on the grid, to me, I think is a good thing. I even think they should go to 24, but we'll see. We'll stick with the 11th team and see what happens. All right, let's do it. Zoomy Boy and Gloomy Boy. Again, going a little long. We got about about maybe 10 minutes, I guess, to get through this. I think we can do it. Deepti, let's start with you. Your Zoomy Boy. We'll start with some positives and we'll end with the negatives because we're gonna, Year of the Hater. We're gonna keep the theme going. Zoomy Boy. Deepti, who is your Zoomy Boy?
My Zoomy Boy is gonna be Yuki Tsunoda. He got the points. He got to Q3. Drove pretty decently well, consistently over the weekend. But it was just really funny, actually, during the actual race, the commentaries, they said that Yuki didn't have the correct visa to enter the US this time. And so he had to convince border control or something to actually let him in and drive. And so I was like, after that whole mishap, you know what? He had a great weekend after that. And he was able to, do well. And like we said, those points for VCARB are important for the battle for 6th in the constructors. So he's helping them out. And he did better than his teammate Lawson, which I'm sure he was happy about, actually.
Didn't he say something about that too? Didn't he say something like he demolished his teammates or something like that? Didn't he say something real gangster? Because I was like, damn, okay, Yuki.
He's not wrong. That's the thing.
He's not.
De Vries, Ricardo, Lawson,
Yeah, I would say if you got, I know things happen to Ricardo in terms of his ability in a car, but listen, if you've got if you can scratch his name off the list as his teammate and you're the one who kind of performed better and they booted him and not you, that's kind of impressive.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Kyle, let's do it. Your Zoomy Boy, which I feel like we should have done the whole podcast on this one. Your Zoomy Boy of the week or of the weekend, Kyle, please tell the people.
You know that meme where it says, "What the hell is a polar bear doing in Arlington?" That is exactly with Zhou Guanyu getting to Q2. That was the first time where I was like, what do you mean Zhou's... What? Zhou? I was like, I see it, because you see a kick and you're thinking, oh, Valtteri Bottas. No, it was Zhou. And you're confused and you're like, all right. And then we get to the race and Zhou continues to do really well. At one point, threatening to get points. And then it's all like, wait, is Zhou going to get points? In in 2024 in this car? Joe is, and it's not like a crash laden point. It's like legit. This car is going to get points. And then Kick did normal Kick things and had a terrible pit stop, which ruined it for him. But shout out to Joe. You got the Q2. You were competing for points at one point. I call that a win.
No, I think you're right. I mean, there were only 2 DNFs, so you can act like it wasn't one of those. Like you said, it wasn't crash aided or a bunch of cars going out. There were 2 DNFs. He ended up in Q2. I think his final 13th is where he finished the race. Not bad. Honestly, agree. If there was like decent strategy, decent piss offs, which probably was hilarious because you could probably forgive them because they're never in this position to like have to like get their shit together. So the fact that they didn't, it's like, well, there it goes. But this is why I'm saying, like, I love getting invested in these battles, these types of stories, because yeah, stuff can happen at the top and you can always just like shout about the winner. That's something everybody can do. But there's always something funny happening or fun or funny or dramatic happening. Sometimes all 3 lower in the grid. And for a second, Joe was in the points and I was like, hell yeah, Joe, keep going. Like, let's do it. Like, get points. Almost like I was cheering for him harder than I was George Russell. And it was hilarious. So yeah, I'm here for that. And I love that you called him out. And having said that, I'm going to completely betray everything I just said because my Zoomy boy is Lewis Hamilton. I mean, listen, that's my guy. I've loved Lewis Hamilton for a very long time. Just a lot of things that he stands for, but also this is a particularly, good Lord, interesting time for him to be like, to step up like this, because there was a book that was released about like somebody going inside Mercedes. I forget who the author was, but one of the quotes got kind of circulated by Toto Wolff saying that everybody has a shelf life. And the insinuation was that Lewis Hamilton might be past his prime, not able to do it anymore. And that's the reason why they're not really sad about him leaving. They want to bring in Kimi Antonelli. And, you know, Toto did try to clarify, you know, him and Lewis have a good relationship. So I don't want to pose it as like Lewis versus Toto. But if you're Lewis reading that, even a clarification, you're like, buddy, I got 7 world championships. Like, I know how to drive it. Give me a car good enough. Here's what I can do. And that's what he did. 10th, yes, he didn't do it in qualifying because he qualified 10th. He had a couple mistakes that had him 10th, but he still went from 10th to 2nd. And the thing that's really impressive is that on much older tires, there was a point in that toward the end of that race where he was getting about a second a lap over Russell. Yes, Russell was managing, but by the time it was there, like he realized that like Lewis is coming, they were both going at it. And Lewis, no DRS aided, no slipstream aided, was just getting fastest lap after fastest lap after fastest lap. He was flying. And I was like, there's the Lewis I know. Like that, I really wanted him to catch George. I wish this race was like 60 laps. His tires probably would have blown up by then, but I'm still like, that's the Lewis that I want to see. And so I'm hoping the drama with Ferrari is all done, because once I want to see Lewis in a championship ready car, because it's still in there and we saw it in Vegas and I'm really excited about that. Okay, time to get sad. You're the hater situation. Kyle, I want to have you go first because I think we can all agree with your gloomy boys of the weekend. Who you got?
Everyone at Williams. Everyone. Franco crashing, costing millions of dollars. Albon doing terrible, having to retire the car. Not his fault, but the mechanics, because they probably had to put in overtime, and then the other car just completely craps out. The accountant is stressed, I'm sure. It's the Tiger King meme. I don't know if I can financially afford this. Every time he sees a crash, every time he sees a failure. Yeah, not a good weekend for Williams. Like, yes, Colapinto got, 13, 14, but it took a lot of money to get him there, which you don't want. So everyone at Williams did not have, at some point, struggled.
Yeah, we talked about it earlier, but yeah, I feel bad for everybody at Williams except the drivers that keep destroying the car. Deepti, your gloomy boy.
I said this in the preview that Pierre Gasly would be the gloomy boy, and he is going to be my gloomy boy. For a time, I didn't think he would be. I thought it would be completely wrong because he qualified P3. He was looking good, but like we said,
outrageous, honestly,
outrageous, right? But like we said, he came on radio. He's like, I have no power. And they're like, no, it looks fine. And then his engine fails. You see all the smoke and it's gone. So yeah, he's my gloomy boy. I also want to give a secondary gloomy boy to everyone in the pit lane. Same pit crews were having a hard time this race.
Oh yeah.
There was I think it was around laps 13, 14. They just showed in the top corner in one of the P&P boxes, Ocon missed his garage, so he had to just go through the pit and go around for another lap. We saw the funny Pierre Gasly and Yuki Tsunoda came out almost immediately side by side, and Yuki runs over the speed limit sign, and then he has a funny quote from a funny clip post race about that. Obviously, we talked about Carlos's pit crew not being ready, and then Lance Stroll's team was absolutely not ready, and he came into the garage, and we see the pit crew just still bringing out the tires, running to bring them out from the garage. So that was probably
tires under their arms is hilarious.
So that was so funny. It was, I don't know how long that entire pit stop was, but it was probably well over 20 seconds for the stop itself, not including him coming into the garage and leaving. But yeah, honorary gloomy boys worth everyone in the pit lane.
Man, I don't know what caused that. Las Vegas is not a tricky or unique pit setup. It's kind of I think the average time lost was 21 seconds they put on the screen. It's not super long. It's not super short. It's fine. So I don't really understand what was going on with the communication. And I also want to give a shout out to, I think it was Martin Brundle, when he saw that Pierre Gasly's engine was smoking. He said there's a gremlin in there somewhere, which was a hilarious way to describe that, because that's what it seems like. He's just cursed. My gloomy boy, going back to my theme of these rookie drivers not having a ton of experience and struggling, I'm going with Liam Lawson. He started out super hot. He was battling with some of the greats. Fernando Alonso he had beef with. He continued to throw his elbows out. It looked like, okay, I'm here. I'm not really... And he was clowning McLaren for playing the British national anthem and not the New Zealand one, right? He came in with a lot of opinions, and I love it. I love the energy, but you can't finish 16th, and that's kind of where he ended up, and that's not great for him. And this was not one of those races that had a ton of weird conditions. And if you kind of look at it, his teammate Yuki Tsunoda finished 9th, got points, and you're 7 places away. That's not great. So I'm kind of I don't know, if you're gonna be that guy, you need to be that guy. And I didn't see enough of that guy this weekend, but I still got faith in him. But he's got to step it up, especially the next two. I want to see him in the season well. Okay. We're done. We're not going to review all the social media funsies because we've been going on a bit too long, but we will post clips in the show notes, so check those out. There's the grid walk, which is always funny at Vegas because it's Vegas, and Vegas is weird. Charles Leclerc has so many. We talked about his rant. People did a lot of Taylor Swift matchups in terms of the lyrics and everything else. It's very funny to see because he's clearly in his sad boy hours or era. That's what it is with Taylor Swift. It's the era thing, right? Yeah, okay. And then Yuki post-race, what Deepti mentioned, he said he shit his pants when he hit that, which is just perfect Yuki, him being perfect. It was great. And I'm sure there's some others, but those will at least be in the show notes. Okay, Kyle, Deepti, anything else to say before we get out of here?
Congrats, Max, I suppose.
Yes. And on that, I just want to say it was really funny that after the race, even though George won, on the sphere, all they put was world champion Max. And I was like, George doesn't even get any love. It's so sad. The entirety of Vegas sees that Max won the championship. But yes.
And I will once again keep the year of the hater going, because one of the things that made me very happy about this Grand Prix is that Max ended up winning the championship without being on the podium. That's hilarious to me. I know they had his whole setup anyway to make sure he still received recognition, and he's lucky it's Vegas and they built the entire thing up. So he had to be, but he finished 5th. He wasn't on the podium, and that makes me, a true hater, very happy. All right. We'll be back to preview the next race. I believe it's Qatar. We'll talk about that track characteristics, all that stuff. But until then, for Deepti, Kyle Carr, I'm out of here. Vroom, vroom.
Vroom, vroom.
Vroom.